everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we make our friends watch our favorite movies and then have them destroy our very will to live. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And just to let you know, you can find us on social media. On Twitter, we're at I Hate Your Taste. And on Instagram, we're at Hate Your Taste Pod. So please follow us. Today, we're doing, what is this, week 2 of Spooky Halloween month?
Spooky.
And we're doing an Austin pick today. Austin, what are we doing?
Well, Jackie, I'm glad you asked. My horror movie love is minimal, so we are starting with definitely the horror movie I've seen the most, if not one of the movies I've seen the most, as I have no taste. We're talking about 2004's The Grudge, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar. It was a treat to watch it over again.
That's one opinion. Yes,
I know, but I'm just going to preface this whole episode by saying I have no expectations that either of you remotely enjoyed this experience.
Okay, God. It's healthy for the friendometer for you to go in with that opinion.
Yeah. It had been a long time since I'd seen it. I think this may have been it came out in 2004. This may have been one of the first movies that I saw in theaters. First horror movies that I saw in theaters.
I was about to have a heart attack. I was like, how did you never see a movie until 2004?
Can you imagine? No, I think it was one of the first horror movies I probably sought out because this was in the peak of my Buffy obsession, the peak of my Sarah Michelle Gellar obsession, because I had to see any movie that she'd ever made, of course, naturally, which she doesn't have a great repertoire of movies. So I think this was probably one of the first ones that I sought out. Saw it a couple times in theaters, bought the DVD, watched it a bunch, was really happy when I could finally sit through it without looking away. And here we are.
What is a couple times in Austin movie-going vernacular?
Yeah, 10, 12, 31.
In theaters? Are we talking theaters?
Theaters.
I saw it twice in theaters. I distinctly remember seeing it twice in theaters, which I think is
that's
an appropriate amount of time.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie twice in theaters, but I respect you.
Yeah. I remember going to see it for the second time with my, middle school boyfriend.
Ooh.
Right?
Is that Blake?
Shockingly not Blake.
Shout out to Blake.
What about you guys, though? What are your experiences with this movie?
My experience is 0. I didn't know anything about it, never seen it, really could have lived my life without ever experiencing it.
Yeah, so I also saw this in theaters, I'm pretty sure. It didn't leave much of an impact on me. I didn't remember it too well. All I remember is that it was boring and not good. So when I was rewatching it, I was trying to think, did I see this in theaters? And then I remember the very opening scene with Bill Pullman. I remember everyone gasping at that. So I was like, okay, yes, this was a movie I saw in theaters. But I also, of course, have seen the original Ju-on. I rewatched it recently, Ju-on and Ju-on 2. And I've seen this version of The Grudge. I haven't seen The Grudge 2, but I saw the one that came out at the beginning of this year in 2020, that sidequel, I think they call it, because it's not really a sequel, it's happening simultaneously, and that was terrible. So really, this is not the best franchise. It's hit or miss for me.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna dive into it, but I will defend it in some aspects. Obviously, I haven't seen Ju-on or Ju-on 2 or any of the Ju-on movies. But from everything I've gathered, this is a kind of a unique adaptation of a Japanese horror movie. Because this was also like a couple years after The Ring, like its peak, let's adapt these Japanese horror movies for American audiences. And I think Jen, you obviously know better than I do, but I think that most of them would take like an American cast, set them in America, and, just have these kind of Americanized versions of the movies, whereas at least this one is set in Japan. It's directed by Takashi Shimizu, who directed Ju-on. And it combines a lot of the films. From what I've gathered, a lot of the things that happen in The Grudge are it's not a direct adaptation of the Ju-on movie. It's an adaptation of all of the Ju-on movies.
I like how you're being kind of generous. You're like, at least it's not, you know, the American adaptation where they're making it with an all-American cast. I'm like, no, it's just set in Japan, and then every main character is a white American who just happens to live there and interact and connect with one another.
Because it was made for American audiences, so yes, obviously. But I just meant that they kept a lot of the original elements to it, which aren't
right.
Which I think is unique in that sense if we're talking about Americanized versions of these Japanese horror movies.
Sure.
We're going with it.
I will say, if we're ready to just jump right in, rewatching it, that was the most jarring thing to me, is that it's set in Japan and every main character, even like side main characters, are like white American expats who don't seem to know anything about Japan. And I was like, could this movie be more xenophobic? Like, I don't understand.
I mean, it kind of makes sense though. If you're in a foreign country, you tend to find people from your original country, and like it's easier to converse with them in your native language, and you know that's why they have bars where all the Aussies go and all that garbage.
Right, yeah. But if it was something like that, I would accept it. But it's so random. There's Sarah Michelle Gellar and her boyfriend. Okay, fine. Her boss at the university. Why is that another white American?
Well, it's like a foreign language school, right? Like they're there to learn English or teach English.
But
or
he
something.
could have been Australian. He could have been British, like to your
Sure,
point.
okay, sure. Yeah, sure.
And then the family that she goes to, sure, okay. The son, I guess, is moving to Japan for a job and bringing his wife and his elderly mother. And then his sister also, I guess, already lives in Japan.
That's the sense that I got, that she already lives there.
Yeah.
And settled.
So that's just an entire family.
Yeah.
And then Bill Pullman, the teacher, who somehow teaches Kayako, he's another white American with his white American wife. Like, there's just too much. They could have had any other character be from any other demographic, and they were just like, nope.
That's fair. Blowing my mind right off the top here, something I've never considered.
Never consider that.
Because I really haven't thought much about this movie in the last 15 years.
Again, it just goes back to the way I just accept things. I'm like, yes, these are the people who live in Japan. I accept this.
All I was getting at with that is I think that it's an interesting take on trying to make something foreign to us a little bit more, I guess, palatable by American movie standards. I don't know. I haven't actually seen Ju-on, so I can only talk to that to a certain extent, but I feel like it's unique in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's just like I said, I didn't have a lot of distinct memories of it, so it was just watching it this time. A lot of those things really stuck out to me. There's a scene very early on where Sarah Michelle Gellar and her boyfriend are walking by a cemetery, and she's like, look, they're doing some sort of religious ritual. This person must have meant a lot. And I was like, holy fuck, xenophobia.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine a movie where they're walking by a cemetery, people putting flowers on a grave, and they're like, look at this Christian ritual that's occurring.
It's so true. That did jump out at me this time. I was like, what is this scene? What is happening?
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with anything else in the movie.
Nothing at all. They're just like, hey, we're in Japan. Hey, Sarah Michelle Gellar knows a little bit about the culture.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of like, look, this culture is different from ours.
Yeah, I thought they would use that as an opportunity to explore some of this mythology that's going to come into play later. Like, P.S., if someone's really upset when they die, they're a super ghost. Like, work it in right there, but they just don't want to talk about it in real life.
Yeah.
Let the exposition paragraph at the beginning try and explain the movie for you.
That's true. So, Jackie, sorry, we kind of like got swept away there. What did you write a guess on the plot synopsis?
Sure did there, pal. First thing I wrote is, I think Sarah Michelle Gellar is in it. And I only know that because Austin loves Sarah Michelle Gellar, and 80% of the movies she will choose will have Sarah Michelle Gellar in it. And then I said, people move into an old creepy haunted house and mad ghosts are mad.
You're not wrong.
I went super generic because I didn't have any clue. I knew one thing about this movie, and it's the poster with the head situation, the fingers. Yeah. So I was like, that looks like ghosts.
I remember that scene being like anything, or the only thing people were talking about at school. Like, everyone was obsessed with that.
Yeah, I remember that being a huge deal too, the scene, because it was even in the trailers where the hand was in the back of her head in the shower. And I'm like, am I the only one who doesn't find it that creepy? Like, it's fine, but it's not, like, that doesn't really scare me.
Have you, like, at the time when you've seen this, had you already been deep in your horror movie obsession and, like, you'd seen the cream of the crop already? Is that the situation?
I mean, okay, this came out in 2004, so I was in high school, so yes.
Okay, that's fair.
So,
I'm
yeah.
still at the point of seeing Zero, so.
Okay. And yeah, maybe for Austin in 2004, she was like, oh, this is scary, but I was like, oh, this movie's boring.
Yeah, I feel like that was kind of the experience that I had watching it this time. Maybe it's because I've seen it too much. I will say I really enjoy the cast commentary for this movie. It's got like the whole cast on it, and like some of the it's like a massive cast commentary. There's like 7 or 8 people doing it, and so that I think listening to it with the cast commentary helped me be able to actually watch the movie. And so now it's kind of like, okay, like now I'm just thinking of like what they were talking about in the commentary. So I feel like this time watching it through wasn't as, I mean, it wasn't scary for me, but it was just enjoyable. It was just an enjoyable, nostalgic walk down memory lane for me.
It scared me. I am the only one, but I was frightened.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm excited to find out what scared you, because there's 2 scenes specifically for me that definitely traumatized me for several months initially.
Let's get to it.
Before we get too into this, I mentioned it to Austin the other day, and I have this really deep fear that Jackie is going to like this terrible horror movie more than any of the good ones I've offered. And then the friendometer will be at 0 for the rest of my life. So
For who? Me or Austin?
For everyone.
It's not my fault. I'm coming in this totally blind.
But if you like this more than the good ones I've given you, then I will be emotionally destroyed.
Okay. That's a real subjective opinion. But anyway, I'll tell you right off the bat, you don't have to worry about that situation happening.
Okay. I was having like fears that Jackie was going to be like, you guys cracked it. I love horror movies now because of the Grudge 2004. And then I'd have to remove myself from the podcast. It was going to be a whole thing.
Jen, I don't think you need to worry because I will never enjoy any of the horror movies you guys pick. So
I'll get you. I'll get you one day.
I love your optimism, but you're wrong.
So I guess you actually did a pretty good job with the synopsis, despite not knowing anything about it. Basically, it's Karen, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's university student in Tokyo. She's asked to fill in for this nurse named Yoko who didn't show up to her placement for this elderly American woman. So Karen goes to the house, and you know, shit gets real. There's an angry ghost in the house. There's a Japanese legend, I guess, story that if someone dies in the grip of a powerful rage, they basically haunt the place. They take revenge and exact, you know, vengeance for their death. So anyone who enters this house is doomed. So this is one of those movies where everyone dies and good times ensue. It's kind of told in a bunch of different timelines all at once, so it's a little bit confusing to figure out kind of the story of when things happen, but basically a family lived in the house, they got haunted, and you just kind of see them all getting picked off one by one until we get to Karen and her boyfriend.
Yeah, I don't understand any of the movie, but what you just said makes sense.
Yeah, I actually made a special page in my notebook of the actual timeline in case we should have that conversation. Because I remember being super confused until about like the 3rd or 4th time I watched the movie.
Yeah, I'm super confused.
I don't actually remember, maybe Austin, you can remind me because you've seen this movie 45 times.
Yeah.
But I know in the Japanese one, they do sort of like, they break it up into kind of vignettes and each has like the main character's name. Do they do it like that in the American one? I know they kind of follow the structure of you're following this person, now you're following this person, but is there a point where the screen is black and they have the character's name or anything like that?
No, there's nothing like that. It's a little bit more it is confusing. I wouldn't say it's done particularly well. I like the end when you get there and you kind of see the beginning and the end at the same time, which we'll get to, but other than that, it took a couple viewings for it to click with me what was going on. So I did make a whole separate page in case we need to refer to that for specifics. What should we talk about, guys?
Well, I'll tell you, the first shot is like Bill Pullman.
Yeah.
And I was like, Bill Pullman, now I'm in. Now I'm 100% invested in this little movie. I'm like, yes, Bill Pullman's going to come in. He's going to pull this out of the dumpster and he's going to raise the bar. Then he jumps off a freaking balcony in 4 seconds. I was like, damn it, Bill Pullman, I was counting on you.
It's so
but I
funny.
knew he was going to come back. You know he's going to come back because he's a character, big name.
Yeah. It did make me laugh because I always remember in the cast commentary, they do mention, he's not in the cast commentary, but they do talk about, I think they're talking to Sam Raimi, and they're like, so how does it feel to kill Bill Pullman in the first 30 seconds of your blockbuster?
Bet it felt good.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about his wife's super underreaction to him jumping?
Yes!
She's just like, oh, Bill.
Yeah, I totally wrote that down because she barely reacts. Like, he walks towards the balcony and she's like, hey, what's going on? And then he just like silently and very almost like stiffly just like flips himself over the edge. And she just kind of goes like, oh. And it's like just on her face that she's kind of, it's not even like shock. It's not even confusion. She's just sort of like, oh, that happened.
Yeah, weird. But she doesn't even scream. She just looks down and is like, yep, there's his mangled body.
Yeah.
What'll I have for breakfast? I kind of, because of that reaction, I really was like, she did something to him. She's in on it.
Ooh, interesting.
She like slipped him something psychosomatic and tortured him all night until he jumped off a roof.
It would be interesting because you also do see her later when Sarah Michelle Gellar goes to like talk to her, and then she's wearing this like glamorous like evening gown, and I'm like, how much money did you get from your husband's death, lady? What are you up to?
She invented this whole ghost thing just to murder her husband.
She faked it all.
Yeah, she murdered a lot of people just to be like, ghost did it. Burp, burp, whoops. Better go wear my red dress.
Yeah.
Also, that's a question I want Austin to answer right off the bat. How much time is supposed to elapse between the suicide and her wearing her party dress?
Oh, hold on. I'm actually thinking.
People grieve in different ways. Maybe her grieving is to go out and like get nailed. Can't blame her for that, but
I'm trying to think because I think he commits suicide before the family moves into the house.
Oh.
Yes.
The White family.
I think he commits suicide not long after she died. So I would say maybe 3 years.
Okay, that's significant. That's significant.
They say that no one's lived in the house for 3 years since the murder of all the family. So I think he found their corpses, right? He actually saw the bodies themselves.
Yes.
So I would say, yeah, probably 3 years.
Okay. That's a little better then.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say it's been a couple months until you reminded me of the 3 years line. So it's acceptable if 3 years after her husband's death, she wants to have a fancy night out.
Yeah,
when it was a couple of months, I was going to be like, lady.
I also thought she was a ghost because when Sarah Michelle Gellar's talking to her, she like disappears. So I was like,
She's also not very observant because she's had these photos for so long, and it took Sarah Michelle Gellar looking at them for 5 minutes to be like, hey, the same person is in every single photo.
Yeah, not even being subtle. She's straight up stalking them in the photos, and the wife is never like, hey, who's this creepy lady?
Yeah.
There's that xenophobia again, I'm sure.
Oh, no.
She didn't really differentiate between faces in the background, perhaps? Awkward.
Possible. Because also, Bill Pullman says at one point that he doesn't know who Kayako is. So I'm like, was she your student? Do you not remember who all the women in your class were? Like,
I mean,
and she sent him sexy notes. Obviously, you're going to remember that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's like a large class of like 200, 300 students, like even here, I feel like people don't know each of their students individually, like who each one is.
That's true.
I'm willing to grant him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
What was he teaching, do you think? Because what course was she taking?
I don't know, but I do want to shout out the other professor that goes by and is just like, Happy Monday! Highlight of the film.
Yeah, so Bill Pullman kills himself because of what he saw? Is that what we're understanding?
Because he's now been haunted by the ghosts, because he was in the house.
Oh. So he kills himself the next day, right?
I think so, yeah.
So what did that ghost do in like one day that fucks him up so bad?
That's what I wasn't sure. Did he kill himself because he is now haunted for sure, but he also discovered the bodies. So did he maybe just kill himself because he like witnessed this crazy thing? Like, was his death supernatural? I don't know.
I always assumed it was because he was haunted by the ghosts, not that he was just so guilt-stricken by discovering the bodies of the family that was murdered because a woman had a crush on him, although I could definitely see why that would fuck with you mentally.
Yeah. I mean, it might be a combination of the two. Who knows?
Yeah, so maybe that's why it worked faster on him. The ghost shows up and he's like, oh, they're blaming me from the dead, so I just have to off myself.
He also did just hang out with Ghost Toshio for like a whole afternoon, so...
True.
That'd be creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy. Did he ever touch that kid? Didn't he like pick him up or something at one point?
Yeah, I think so.
But he's a ghost.
Well, this is my other question. Okay, this is not going to be in any kind of linear conversation, so
Just like the movie.
highly recommend watching the movie. Jumping ahead again, I was a little confused about whether Yoko, when we see her later when she kills Alex, is she a ghost herself, or is she possessed by, or like, is her corpse possessed by Kayako? Like, is she physically there? I'm a little confused about the ghost logistics.
I assume it's all ghosts.
Okay.
I assume it's a possessed body because her jaw is in the attic, and it seems like the attic is where the bodies get stored, if you will. And her body is not up there. It's just her jaw. So I feel like she's being used somehow as a vehicle for ghost woman. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
To walk around. But if she had that ability, wouldn't she do that all the time? Like, why would you let yourself be trapped in this house if you could just go wander about and murder?
Well,
And also, why does she murder Alex?
he got in the house. He went to the house whenever Karen called him.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, let's go back here. So, Bill Pullman dies. And then we see Yoko and all fun times. And then we have our first scare. Jackie, did that face in the attic scare the shit out of you?
You guys are not going to like this, but I closed my eyes. I don't know what it was. Was it the little kid?
No,
was it the lady?
It was the lady. It was Kayako.
Yeah, I even wrote in my notes, I closed my eyes. What did she see? Because I'm like, oh, she's panning slowly with a flashlight. Gee, I wonder if something horrible is going to be there.
Don't even remember the scene. You were like, the face in the attic. And I'm like, what?
Well, first of all, Yoko's an idiot. She's like, what's that mysterious creaking noise? I think I'll go slowly walk through every dark room in the house and then climb into an abandoned, dusty attic. Like, what are you doing? Does anyone think that they would do that? I'd be like, well, guess there's rats in the attic. Gonna put my fingers in my ears and never think about it again. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because that's not your house and not your job. You're just there to take care of the old lady. You could just leave a note for the son being like, heard noises in the attic, think you might have a rodent problem. Bye.
Bye.
And then go and not die. Although she was in the house, so she would have to die anyway.
Well, okay, so this, I didn't really put this together, but so once you enter the house, like your fate is sealed.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're fucked.
Because I kind of thought, without thinking too hard about it and not considering Alex's situation, I was like, once you're in the house and you're in the house, you're effed. But I kind of thought you could probably leave and everything would be fine. I thought it would be contained to the house.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere. And if I'm not mistaken, Jen could probably answer this. I think in the Japanese originals, she does kill people outside of the house. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
She travels. She goes on little jaunts and is like, hey, friend, now you're dead.
But she's always a ghost. She's never a corporeal possessed corpse.
No, I think I'm trying to remember the end of Ju-on, because I think it's sort of implied that she kills Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, the Japanese version, to kind of like make her live out like the end of Kayako's life. So I'm not sure if she's sort of doing like a possessing thing for that. I don't remember it too well, even though I watched it like a few months ago, but yeah. I think that would be the only time that there's maybe some sort of like corporal thing, is like I think she kind of like possesses her for a minute, but that's not for long.
Okay.
And then we meet Karen, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and her boyfriend Doug. Doug of all names, Doug.
That guy is so early 2000s actor. I feel like I know him, and
Jason Bear. Jen, this is where I have my extreme 2004 hair note.
Oh yes,
yes. The flat with the flip.
Oh
my God.
Oh my God.
2004.
Was he in Roswell?
I'm not sure. I know him from the one episode of Buffy that he was in.
Was he Parker?
No, he was Billy Fordham.
The vampire guy?
Yeah, he wants to be a vampire.
Oh, such a good episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that happen before or after this movie?
After. This was after Buffy ended, I think. Yeah. And so, okay, Jen, I did see that in the trivia, they say that in this scene, when Karen and Doug are walking down the sidewalks of Tokyo, they pass a group of schoolgirls, which is supposed to be a nod to the original.
Yes.
What's the nod?
Well, Jen could take it away. They do that storyline in The Grudge 2, which is terrible, but they do that storyline.
Okay, so in the original, in the Japanese version, there is a storyline where 3 schoolgirls in the future from the kind of family after they've been murdered, this is like 15 years later, these schoolgirls go to the house and are being haunted and killed by Kayako. And then there's also kind of a time split moment. So if you remember at the end where Bill Pullman and Sarah Michelle Gellar are in the house at the same time, that kind of happens, but it's with the detective who's investigating, and one of the schoolgirls is actually his grown-up daughter, and they kind of see each other, and then she leaves the house and escapes, and her other friends are killed, and then she's afraid that Kaiko's going to come and kill her too, and her dad had obviously died in the first timeline, so they just had that like time moment where they saw each other.
I see.
But like, she does die, right? Like, she doesn't get away.
No one gets away.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I feel like the whole premise is that no one gets away. So if this chick gets away, I'm gonna have some serious questions.
She got away for some time.
Yeah, but I bet that whole time she was real stressed out. So it's like, is that really buying time?
Yeah, because like all the friends died, I think, that day. So then she was like in her bedroom with like the walls like papered and the windows papered so nothing could try to come in, because she's like, the ghost is coming for me next.
It's so creepy.
This opens with Sarah Michelle Gellar being very annoying. Like, her first introduction to her, she's like, ooh, I know where your pants are. I am your like good little girlfriend. I was like, ew, this is a bad look for you.
And then she like set his alarm clock early so that
I'd be pissed.
Have a little canoodling before he had to go somewhere.
Maybe my priorities are very different, but I'd be like, bitch, I need to sleep. I am a very busy student.
I am with you, Jackie. And I also just hate them as a couple. Like, I don't understand their dynamic. It seems like he came to Japan for school, I guess, and she kind of came along just to be with him. So, like, she's also in school, but she doesn't seem as committed to being there, more just, like, to being with him. But they have this weird, like, where she's always being, like, cutesy with him and really, like, I don't know, he doesn't seem as, I don't like them as a couple, is what I'm saying. I think she could do better. I think he's not super into it. They should break up. That's the whole point of this movie, right? To break up that couple. This is a romance.
He's totally useless. He's a totally useless character. He really doesn't impact the story until the very end, but I'm sure they could have figured something else out, you know?
When he, like, ruins everything. It's like, thanks for showing up, Doug. Like, damn it, man.
And his character doesn't exist in the Japanese version. Right. Like, the Sarah Michelle Gellar character doesn't have, like, a live-in boyfriend that she has to rescue. That's just an American thing. So I think that's why he had nothing to do until the end, where it's like, now someone she cares about is in the house.
Ew, I already prefer the Japanese version.
Would you like to watch it?
No, ever, no, never,
I have
no,
the DVD. No. I'll be right there.
Okay, great. If the door's locked, just wait for a really long time. I will say that I feel like Sarah Michelle Gellar's true boyfriend is her giant turtleneck sweater that she wears the entire movie.
Yes.
Her outfit, I like wrote down everything she was wearing, because it's like bootleg pants, turtleneck sweater, scarf, jacket, chunky heel boots. So 2000s. It's horrible. Like, so many unnecessary layers and like, not a good look, but she rocked it.
And she did rock it. But
I don't know about that.
To top it off, it was also like really fucking hot apparently when they were filming. So here I come in with my cast commentary info once again. So like you can, especially in the scene where she's like on the rooftop talking to Detective Nakagawa, she keeps like inching the zipper of her jacket down little by little because it was just so hot. And I think to the point where they actually took out the gray sweater, like just sewed the cuffs of the sleeves into the jacket and the hood into the jacket because it was so hot. So yeah, they're like piled into these layers of clothes, and then I don't know. And it's like noticeable. Like I feel like that happens all the time with TV shows and anything that's filmed in Hollywood, but for some reason it's super noticeable in this movie that like, oh, they're warm. They are toasty and bundled up.
Yeah, at one point I'm like, this detective is so sweaty.
Yeah.
Now it all makes sense. I'm like, yeah, he's nervous, but like, is he that nervous? He's also a skeptical detective. Isn't he kind of like, sure, ghosts, ooh, I'm so scared.
I think I have a little bit of a crush on that detective, I'm not gonna lie. I really like him.
He's cute, and I was like, I kind of thought it was going to be a movie where the hero isn't who you expect, and I was like, maybe he's gonna friggin' burn this thing down and solve everyone's problems. just unfortunately not the way it turned out.
Well, I think that's like one of the differences too between like American and Japanese horror. And like I know one of the things with The Ring and with this one as well, where it's just like the ghosts are evil. There's no resolution to this. The ghosts are just evil. You're just fucked. And that's not something that happens very often in like American horror as much as it does in Asian horror.
Yeah,
Guess who doesn't love that?
I was gonna say that's something that I love about these films. I love that in The Ring, you know, Sadako, once they're like, we have to solve what happened to her and give her a nice burial. She's like, that's nice. I'm still pissed and gonna kill everyone.
Yeah.
And then same thing here with like Hayako. They keep being like, we have to figure out what happened to her. Oh, her husband killed her because he's a dick. What do we do? She's still just angry and killing everyone. Like, we can't fix this. There's nothing you can do to solve it. And like, especially with this in The Grudge, where it's anyone who's been in the house, you can have nothing to do with anything. You've just accidentally walked into the wrong house and you will die.
Like the realtor, that is the one person that they don't actually mention, I don't think, in the movie, but the realtor must be dead too, right? Like, poor guy.
Yeah.
He tried so hard.
After he saw that bathtub incident and then didn't bring it up to
It's
anyone.
Fine. Everything's fine.
Right? I'm like, dude, that's hella unethical. I definitely have that note written down. Also, when the realtor is showing the family around, I thought that the couple who are husband and wife, I thought they were brother and sister. I got a hard brother-sister vibe from those two.
Same. I thought, because it was showing like the actual sister, the brother, and the wife, and the elderly mother, and I just thought they were all siblings. Like this adult family was all just moving to Japan for some reason.
He also calls his wife kiddo, which I was like,
oh yeah, I wrote that down.
I mean, there is a bit of an age gap between them, no?
Yeah, but not enough to call your wife kiddo. There's
No,
never a time to call your wife kiddo.
I agree, but I'm just saying it's kind of an extra level there where he's maybe like 45 and she's maybe like, Clea Duvall would have been what, like 29 at that point?
Don't like it. Didn't like Matthew at all.
Was that?
No, he's not great.
I love that you know every character's name, Austin.
Okay,
I'm like, who the fuck is Matthew?
The husband is Matthew. His wife is Clea Duvall's character. I forget her name. What's her name?
I don't know.
Oh no.
I only know actor names.
And then his sister is Susan, Katie Strickland. And then we got
Strickland.
Yeah, she was on Private Practice. She's been around. She's apparently married to Jason Behr, and they met on this movie, which blew my mind. And they're like still married. They have kids.
How did they meet on this movie? They never had a single scene together.
Craft services.
It sounds like they did a lot as a cast, like outside of filming. It sounds like they all did a lot just in terms of getting to know Tokyo and doing everything. So it sounds like it was a pretty cool experience, honestly, to film the movie for everyone.
I guess I kind of want to talk about when Karen is trying to talk to old lady. I think her name's Emma, maybe?
Yes, Emma.
She's like, what's wrong, Emma? And Emma's like looking over her shoulder, totally frozen in horror. I'm like, if you saw someone looking over your shoulder like that, wouldn't you tilt your head and be like, what's over my shoulder? But instead, she's just like, Emma, I know you're nonverbal, but why don't you break that trend and talk to me? And then the hair comes out of the ceiling. That was one of my scary moments. Because I was like, something's happening behind her, so I was only watching behind her. So I saw all the little shadows and the hair and the hand, and I was like, I want to die. The sweet embrace of death, come to me.
Speaking of hair, this is such a tangent. You guys know how like my apartment might be haunted and I keep ignoring it, like my lights flickering for no reason and stuff?
Yeah.
One time a couple months ago, I went into my hall closet by the door to clean it, and there was like
a
clump of long black hair hanging from the side, and I was like, what Japanese ghost is breaking into my apartment? It might have been there like before I moved in, and I just never noticed it until that day, and I left it because I didn't want to touch it.
I'm never going to your apartment again.
So anyway.
Are we cursed? Am I currently cursed? I need to know.
I mean, I haven't died.
Been in your apartment, Jen.
Look, I haven't died. I've lived here for 2 years with whatever ghost might be haunting me.
To quote Karen in this movie, I've been in that house.
Right?
Okay, well, if you guys die horribly, then I'm sorry.
Thanks. I really am not prepared to be like the survivor in a hero horror movie. I'm not.
If we're in The Grudge, none of us are surviving.
I will. Guess what? I'm breaking it. I'm breaking the Grudge curse. I'm making it. I'll wear some kind of elaborate mask, trick the ghost.
But again, I haven't died, so it's probably not a ghost.
Yes.
But that was my first thought, where I was like, this is a Japanese ghost coming to murder me. It's like the long black hair.
Oh no.
Creepy.
I don't know how you sleep in your
Also,
apartment,
like,
honestly.
gross. Who left their hair in my apartment? I don't want to touch it. I don't like hair when it's not attached to a head.
Is it?
Yeah, I didn't touch it. I just ignored it.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Like, I'm not dealing with this, and shut the door.
All right, back to reality. Back to the Grudge.
Oh gosh, I don't even know what time. Should we talk about Kayako herself? Like, I find her creepy. So she played Kayako in Ju-on in the original, and Toshio as well was from the original. So
but that kid is awful.
He's pretty creepy.
I hate that kid.
When this came out, when I was in high school, like I mentioned before, my one friend and I used to make fun of that dumb cat kid so much. We would always just be like, there's a little kid and he just meows, so we would always like meow at each other. Anyway.
I also feel like that's something that wasn't really explained in the American movie. Like, I haven't seen Ju-on, but like reading up on it, it sounds like there's a bit more explanation for like this kid being attached to his cat. Like, the cat has a name. I think it's Mar in the original, and like they've kind of
they have a cat,
and like they've kind of merged together. But that's just not mentioned at all in the Grudge. So it's kind of like, why is this kid meowing?
If I recall correctly, it's like the kid and the cat were like killed together by the dad,
right?
And that's why they kind of merge.
Ew, I didn't get that was what happened. I forgot there was a cat, honestly. I just thought that was ghost noise.
Yeah, no, there's a cat. He's always holding it. It's very creepy.
He's a cat. Cool. Gross. If I saw that kid in real life anywhere around 2004, like, I would have just booted him across the street and been like, goodbye, Toshio. Not today.
Some poor Japanese school child is like walking by Jackie and she's like, boom! Toshio, boom.
Not a court in the country would convict me.
Don't know if that's true.
Exhibit A, the Grudge.
Committed a hate crime.
I was gonna say, I remember when I saw The Grudge 2 in theaters, there's a scene where Toshio, I don't remember the plot of this movie at all, it's so complicated, but they're like in an apartment building hallway, and then there's like, there's a little jump scare where all of a sudden Toshio is sitting in the hallway, if I remember correctly, and I screamed so loud in the theater. I've never screamed in a theater before, but Toshio did make me scream in a theater. It was embarrassing. People laughed at me.
Were you the only one? Yeah?
Yes.
Didn't I do that when we saw that Invisible movie? I just gasped super loudly.
You weren't the only one, at least, Jackie, but you like made noise, and I was like, this is delightful.
I didn't enjoy it, but I'm glad somebody did.
I love so much that, like, when you're in a theater and people get into it and like gasp and scream like that, it's so enjoyable.
This was my other thing, is I do remember seeing The Grudge in theaters the second time. I remember we were sitting in front of two people who were, I think, on a date, and the girl was probably too afraid to be watching the screen, and I remember her boyfriend like describing everything that was happening, which normally would be really irritating, but it was the scene where the detectives are looking through the attic and they discover the bodies of Cleo Duvall and her husband, and I just remember the guy being like, okay, they're going up. Okay, they're opening the attic door. Okay, they're there. Okay, they're walking around. It's really dark. Okay, we don't know. Oh my god, there's something. Oh my god. He was like freaking out at the same time. It was very funny.
That is funny, but I would 100% hate being behind those people. I'd be like, shut up.
Yeah, at least it was the second time I saw it.
Sorry, but I would be like, great, now I don't have to bother my friends. This guy will just tell me what's up. Okay, great. What's happening?
Just watch like a described video version of it.
100% would love to. That's the kind of horror movie I can get behind. No visuals.
But yeah, Kayako. We were going to talk about her.
Yes.
Oh yeah. What's her damage? Seriously, girl, chill. She's so angry. Like, usually you can't sustain that kind of anger for this long. Like, get over it. I get it. Your husband killed you. It's sad. Move to the light.
So, one thing that I prefer in the Japanese version to the American, I mean, everything, but also specifically, I don't like how the American one handles her story, because they make her like a creepy stalker, and then her husband discovers that he's a creepy stalker and kills her, which still isn't okay, but it's like they've already laid some groundwork there that she's like messed up and not right. And I don't love that. Whereas in the Japanese films, she does have a crush on a guy and like her husband finds out about it. But it's like an old family friend who is also Toshio's kindergarten teacher, I believe. So her husband loses his mind because he thinks that she's been having an affair for years and the child isn't really his. And she kind of hadn't really done as much wrong. She just had a crush on another person, even though she was married, which, you know, it's not an offense that you should be put to death for. So I did find that like the American one, like this is American remakes always just have to take it that extra step further. Like they can't allow for any subtlety in their films. It always has to be everything's like so in your face. And so they had to kind of do it with this, where they're like, she's so creepy. She stalked him. She had his fingernails in a notebook. And that's why she's an evil ghost. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I forgot
no.
about that. Like, I honestly forgot about the
Fingernails? Is that real? Like, sorry, but she actually had his fingernails?
Yeah, in like her notebook, there was like clippings of his hair and fingernails or something like that.
Yeah.
Whoa, missed that.
Even if they had just left it at the she had a crush on Peter, and that's Bill Pullman's character.
Sorry, I was gonna say in my notes I call him Billy Pulls.
Billy Pulls. But you know, even if they had left it with like she had a crush on him, he didn't know she existed, you know, and she's like in his photos or whatever. I don't know that they needed to go that extra step of like also she wrote these diaries and like, you know, was keeping all these like trinkets and tokens of his and stuff like that. Yeah, that's maybe a little much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, you could portray someone having a crush or even in a healthy obsession without making them like a complete deranged stalker, and I didn't love that choice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is true. Like, you don't feel so bad that she's dead. You're like, well, yeah, she was like probably gonna kill Billy Pulls if she had more time. She's a loco.
Yeah, and it kind of like, I know obviously she is the evil ghost that's killing everyone, but it also kind of takes away from the fact that she was just violently murdered by her husband, and that's why she's getting revenge on everyone and everything. It kind of like takes the blame away from him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just what we are used to in movies, but yeah, it would be nice to have a little bit more sympathy for her as a human before she died, which would make it that much worse that she's just so evil in death. But I like the fact that very few special effects were used in this movie. And she's just a hardcore contortionist and is terrifying.
That crickety-crackety movement, so awful. I never need to see that. Like the crawling down the stairs where it looks like all your bones are breaking repeatedly.
Yeah.
No.
It was cool. I watched all the special. I have the DVD. I watched all the special features, but there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff of like watching them film like her segments, and it's just cool. Like, even the scene where she's like walking down the office corridor, the way that she's like twitching, so that when you're playing it back, it looks like it's like just skipping on the film, but it's actually like her movements physically. Very, very creepy. And then like she disappears and then comes back up to the camera. Like, it's all her. Like, she was painted completely black for that scene. Or like the scene where she kills Emma, you know, she's like hovered over them on this like little plank, or yeah. And I don't know, it's just really cool and again, that's how I like to know how things are done. I find it really interesting. So I just think she's awesome, and she can crawl down the stairs like a fucking bug, and it's creepy.
Yeah, horrible. Really bad. Can I get technical for a second? My one other question I have about Ghost Woman, Murder Ghost, is like when she kills somebody outside of the house, i.e. Alex or sister, whatever the sister of the Matthews sister. Susan. What happens to their bodies? Because Susan gets sucked into her own bed somehow.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know, just that they, I think, disappear. Like, I think Susan got sucked into her bed and no one knows what happened to her.
I think there's a reference to, I can't remember if this is in this movie or in the Japanese ones, in the research that I was doing. I can't remember which movie it pops up in. But there's a reference to Detective Nakagawa's coworkers that also died. Remember that, where he had a bunch of friends who died? There's a reference to one of their bodies never being found. So I think it's probably a similar situation to Susan, where she's never found. But I think there's a deleted scene, or in the director's cut or something for The Grudge, where they do find Alex's body, and they are like discussing who killed who and all that. So I think his body is still present somewhere and ends up in a morgue somewhere. but I think that's all in deleted scenes. I will say it sounds like a lot of stuff got cut, probably about a half an hour worth of footage that probably would have made things more clear got cut so that they could get a PG-13 rating on this movie. So there's that as well.
First of all, why would you aim for a PG-13 horror movie? You've just alienated both people who love horror movies and children.
Teenagers are the biggest like horror movie demographic, so they try to Austin at the time that this came out, so they try to like get that sweet spot of like, I think in Canada we have 14A. I don't know if they have that in the US, but they try to have it so that teenagers can go see it, because if it's rated R, no one under 18 can go, and then they lose a lot of money. Yeah. Anyway, that is my horror rating knowledge for you. Thank you.
It's true, because it sounds like a lot of the stuff that was cut was a little like a more graphic in terms of the actual like murder of the family, and
so they cut the good stuff.
They cut the good stuff.
I mean, subjective again. Is that the good stuff?
No wonder this movie's so boring. They cut all like the violence and gore and scares.
It's funny.
I'd rather watch Sarah Michelle Gellar walk super slowly around various sets for more time than witness any of these graphic murders, let me just say.
When I was watching it this time, I realized that like each scene is scary, like quote unquote scary. Like there's not a lot of downtime. Like there's a few like expositional scenes between like Clea Duvall and, what is her name? I cannot remember her character's name, but her and her husband.
I thought it was Jennifer, honestly.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it is Jennifer. Anyway, like there's a couple
I'm surprised
of
Jenn didn't remember that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on that.
It's just like, and now we're going to kill this person, and now we're going to kill this person, and now we're going to kill this person. And you don't really understand what's going on until like the very end.
Or not even then.
We had such a different perception of this movie, because as you're describing that, I'm like, no, this movie's all downtime. It's so slow. It's so boring.
I was using air quotes.
But I mean, even when you're saying like, oh, it's just they do this and then next and kill person, I'm like, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like it's a slog to get to anything.
That's really funny.
We watched different movies, I guess.
Think so.
I'm more on Jen's side. I thought there was just way too much slow walking.
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt that way this way. I was just like, this is a weird, or maybe it was that I felt like they were trying harder to have scare after scare. I don't know. The pacing did feel a little weird to me.
Well, the slow walking was meant to build tension. Like you could tell they were like, something scary is going to happen. But most of the time it didn't deliver. It was just like, and she keeps walking slowly and she turns a corner and there's another room to walk slowly into.
Yeah. Or there's a scene where they're following like Clea Duvall's character around town because she's like, I don't understand Japan. And she goes to a grocery store and like rips open the packaging on some ramen noodles like a jackass. I hated her in that moment. But I was also like, do I need to be following her around her day? Like, what is this? This isn't building her character. This isn't building any tension. It's just like... Well,
it was supposed to be building her character, though. Although they didn't really follow up on it, right? Like, she's unhappy there, and I think that's supposed to show that she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know how to... She can't, like, function in Japan yet. So she, like, couldn't figure out what that bowl even was, so she punctured the hole in it so she could smell it because she was just sick of things. And then she at least purchased it. In her
True.
Defense.
But as someone who has never been to Japan, I know that was a bowl of noodles. Like...
I feel like there was a big bunch of noodles on the packaging. It's pretty clear.
I'm not defending. I think she's a boring character.
And also, like, I get that they're going for the bored housewife thing, which is what her character was in the Japanese version as well. But now that they're doing it with, like, she's American and is so confused by Japan and Japanese culture, I'm like, your husband did not switch jobs and uproot your lives in a day. Like, you could have been doing some research, maybe. You could have a little book of Japanese phrases that you're learning and you're walking around with it. You could, like, print out some maps, because I know it's 2004 and you don't have smartphones yet, but you have Google. Print out some maps of your neighborhood so you don't get lost. She's just not trying at all.
That's true.
Yeah, you should be able to at least say, how do I get to my address?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character is doing it. You see her figuring out the subway maps and where.
Yeah, and she's trying. Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character also isn't super well versed in Tokyo yet. I don't know how long her and her boyfriend are supposed to have been there, but like, she does try. And when her boss, Ted Raimi, at the beginning is like, you have to go to this house. Don't worry, they're English speakers. So like, it's clear that she's not super comfortable with her Japanese yet, but on some level she's trying. Like, you get more of a sense that she, even though maybe she didn't want to be there in the first place and was just coming for her boyfriend, she is trying. And Clea Duvall is just like, I hate everything and I'm probably better off dead.
Whoosh, hot take. Also, is that Sam Raimi's brother?
Yes.
Is he in all of his movies, like the black sheep poor relation that he just drags around Hollywood?
He's in a lot of his movies. I don't know if he's in all of his movies, but he's very funny.
Okay, so since we bring him into the conversation, let's talk about his death scene.
I thought you just wanted to talk about Ted Raimi, and I was gonna be like, I saw him and Bruce Campbell do an event together, and it was really funny. Anyway.
All right.
Name drop.
Horror people you don't care about.
I don't know who Bruce Campbell is. Is that bad?
Evil Dead. He's Ash. Okay.
I
threw down my pen in anger. I'm closing my laptop.
He's Ash, guys. He's totally Ash. He's the definitive Ash. I have no idea what that means. That's nonsense words to me.
Same.
But sorry, Austin, yeah.
No, I was gonna say his death scene was one of the two that really scared me when I saw this movie originally, and took like several viewings to actually be able to watch it. So Jackie, did you watch it?
No. I watched her like shuffling about, and I was like, hey, I have an idea, Alex. Don't engage. Why are you talking to what is clearly a murder ghost? I mean, doy. So I watched him be like, hey, Yoko, is that you? I thought you were totally dead, but it turns out you're in the office at 3 a.m. Let's chat. And I saw her shuffle, and then eventually she stops and you see that she doesn't have a jaw, but then I closed my eyes.
Okay, well, that's more than I saw initially for several viewings.
So what happens? Tell me about his death.
Well, no, that's pretty much... We don't actually see his death. We just see her turn around and her tongue's, like, hanging out because she has no bottom jaw. But I couldn't watch that for a long time. Also, you skipped over the part where he definitely puts his hand in what is clearly a puddle of blood. It's just
you don't touch that.
What's this?
I feel like in 2004 they knew that, hepatitis and HIV were a thing. Don't just be like, I'm going to rub this on my skin for a while. What could it be?
But yeah, anyway, that one took me several times, but now, watching it now, I cracked up at his expression when she turns around. Did you see this? Was anyone gifted his expression? He, like, screamed like a baby, and it was so funny to me.
I'll have to rewatch that scene.
Oh gosh, it's worth it. And, okay, so that was kind of skipping ahead, but while we're on the topic of deaths, the other traumatizing scene was Susan's in her apartment. It's a very extended scene. Starts in the office where she sees something in the stairwell and like runs to a security guard. He goes, she sees her, Kayako's like fucking creepy, walking down the hallway. She takes a cab, she gets back to her apartment, takes the elevator, and Toshio is standing in the window on every floor. That was creepy.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah. When she's like up in the elevator, every floor, there's Toshio in the window.
That's probably my favorite scene, like, in the original, obviously. This movie has nothing good to it. But I did love that, where it's, like, going up the elevator and, like, he's getting closer and closer to the elevator doors, like, each floor she passes. It's creepy. I enjoy that.
I just got goosebumps.
I definitely was like, oh, she's in an elevator, something terrible's going to happen. But I didn't notice. So I was like, oh, I guess nothing happened in the elevator. Moving on.
I think that's probably one of the better sequences in this movie. And then she gets into her apartment, and then this is the other, I do remember the theater freaking out when she gets to her apartment and she gets a phone call from her brother, and she picks it up and he's like, hey, I'm here, like, what floor are you on? And she says, and it's like a really high floor, and she's like, I'll buzz you in, and she buzzes him in, and then instantly the doorbell rings. Like, that's creepy. I remember the theater being like,
yeah, that freaked me out.
Yeah.
But people just behave so irrationally in horror movies. Like, I know you're doomed, but she doesn't know she's doomed. So guess what? Don't answer the door. Don't go outside. Just sit on your couch with your back against a wall, and maybe you'll be okay.
But I mean, she looked through the peephole, and her brother was there.
I wouldn't trust my brother. If I saw some creepy ass chick like crickety cracking on a surveillance video, I think I'd be like, everyone on their own. Don't come to my house.
But she also...
It's survival of the fittest.
She has no reason to believe that it would follow her to her house, right? She saw that at the office building, so maybe she's like, shit, my work is haunted, I need to find a new job. Thank God I'm home where everything's normal and safe. Yeah, and then the ghosts are like, surprise, bitch.
But Austin said it too. It's like, buzz, doorbell. Yeah. I think you should be a little bit more suspicious of that.
Sorry, this sequence still kind of freaks me out a little. I'm not gonna lie. The whole Katie Strickland office to home to death kind of is still creepy to me. I'm not gonna lie. And then so she goes to bed. She curls up in bed, and Kayako decides to join her, and it's fucking creepy.
That was not cool, guys. That I had to sleep within 24 hours of seeing that, because I even wrote here, I'm like, it's under the covers. This does not bode well for me sleeping tonight. And it didn't, because guess what? If I lift my covers, there's a dog there. And if you're not paying a lot of attention, that shit'll scare the crap right out of you.
Yeah, so that was the other scene that took me a long time to be able to watch all the way through. So I know Jen is about to shit on it, I'm sure, but it still kind of got me.
I was going to say that whole sequence is shot for shot the same from the Japanese version. So
oh, okay. All right.
That's why it's good.
Fair enough.
So here's another question. So Susan got murdered in her apartment, but she wasn't necessarily in the grip of a strong emotion. So we're not assuming that now her apartment is haunted.
No.
But theoretically, her body disappeared there, so is still in some way there on another dimension?
Whoa.
So maybe it's haunted.
Ghosts on ghosts on ghosts.
Maybe. What would have been cool is if after she was sucked into the bed, it exploded into a tunnel of blood like Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
That would have been cool. I get that reference, you guys. I'm there with you.
I made a note around this point of the movie that for Sarah Michelle Gellar being the star of this movie, she's not in a good chunk of the film.
Yeah.
That's true. Is she really the star, though, or is she just
I mean, she's
there?
Definitely the draw, right? 2004.
Yeah,
For Austin.
No, they did really bill her as the star, but this movie is an ensemble. Like I said, in the Japanese one, it's sort of more like vignettes where it's like you follow this person, and now this person, and now this person. And so that character is sort of only at the beginning and the end, and then isn't in the rest. So they did put in a little bit more of Sarah Michelle Gellar, kind of like splicing her through, but still not enough to really make this be like her starring vehicle.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I just always assumed like, oh yeah, she's the star. But yeah, watching it this time, I'm like, there's a lot of movie without her, and it's fine. Like I think she does well enough in horror movies. That's kind of her shtick. Is the part where she's running to the house where she's clearly doing her Buffy run.
I said that. Yeah,
Yes.
like she has such a distinctive run. And I was very disappointed when I noticed that. I'm like, oh, so she can't even try and not be Buffy for a minute. I get it. Okay.
See, I think.
And also, why did she decide to run? Is running really the fastest way to get anywhere? Hail a cab, girl. Hail a cab.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I think because like we're all such Buffy fans and love Sarah Michelle Gellar so much that I was kind of underwhelmed by her in this movie. Like the character Karen doesn't really do much. She just looks kind of distraught and doesn't talk and walks slowly from room to room, like Jackie pointed out.
Thank you.
So I kind of was like, this is really what you hire Sarah Michelle Gellar for? Like she could do so much. She could be such a better like final girl, scream queen, like any of that
She's
stuff.
a great screamer.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, are those different terms?
Yeah.
A final girl and a scream queen? Aren't they? Isn't everybody in a horror movie the same? They're all just like this. Oh, what's upstairs? Better go check.
Jackie, our friendometer is so low right now.
Guess what, dude? My friendometer for you is pretty low, too. All right? You're losing any respect I had for you.
What did I ever do to you?
You are talking about all the movies you're going to force me to watch. I don't want to.
You're going to watch all of them.
I want you to explain to me how she stumbles into an alternate dimension where she watches Billy Pulls live his life in another time. Like, what? All of a sudden, time travel's happening? What?
I don't know. Like I mentioned earlier, there is something similar to that in the Japanese version where there's kind of like a cross in the timeline. I do find that when you watch the Japanese films versus the American films, the Japanese ones are a lot more, I don't want to say like spiritual, but a lot more like supernatural. Like in The Ring, like everyone's psychic, but then in the American one, that's kind of not a thing. And I'm like, where's all the psychics? So I think it's kind of just that they lean into this, when they're doing a horror movie like this about ghosts, they lean into the supernatural a bit more without kind of explaining it. And then for American audiences, it's sort of like, wait, why is she time traveling? Is she having visions? But then like when she goes to touch something, he feels it. So it's...
Yeah, I just kind of interpreted it a little bit as some sort of like imprint that's on the house. I don't know why she saw it Like, I don't know what makes her special, really.
And if there was an imprint on the house, why would it be of Bill Pullman walking around and not of the actual murders?
He has a magnetic personality, you must admit.
That's true. Sarah Michelle Gellar was like, ooh, Bill Pullman, let me write a diary about you.
Let me just
well, when her boyfriend looks like that, I mean.
True.
Well, and apparently, when in that little moment where they're staring at each other and she can't quite tell if he can see her, they weren't even on set together that day. So I feel like good acting, good job on both of them. Claps, claps, claps. It was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, I don't know what makes her special enough to witness it, but I assume it's just to tie the movie together.
Again, because I didn't know anything about this movie and still don't understand it, I was like, oh, maybe the house is on like some kind of spooky vortex, and it's not even the ghost that's super vengeful, it's the house, the location that's made this possible. And so it's also messing with time or whatever.
But I mean, that's also a possibility, right? We don't get anything to tell us otherwise.
You're welcome. Cracked it.
Thanks, Jackie.
Horror movies are so easy, you guys. Very logical. Okay, I'd like to follow me on this. Say you love a dude, you have super crush on him. You're like, I'm into this dude. His business is what I want. Would you ever put 100 tiny faces of his on a wall?
Yeah.
What is like sexy about that? It's the scariest, weirdest thing. I'm like, your obsession is bad.
Well, that's what it goes back to what Jen and I were talking about earlier. Like, they could have got the point across that, like, she had a crush on Peter and her husband thought she was having an affair. Like, I didn't even get that part of it. I think that is trying to be implied, but it's not. Like, they could have still had that without her having, like, a shrine to Peter, you know?
It's just such a poorly done shrine.
Should I just not turn my camera around and show you guys my other walls where they're all covered with tiny cutout faces?
Me?
Yeah, of you, Jackie, because you're the one I'm stalking.
You know what? This really checks out. I was missing a big chunk of hair. It's on your wall.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, great. We're in agreement. That is a really weird choice to have a tiny head wall. I don't know why, but I was just like, it's beyond it being upsetting, and it is. It's such a bad shrine. Like, if you really wanted to make a shrine and you had the time and the glue, I feel like you could have done a lot better.
Yeah. I think the assumption on why things are happening in that house, I think we can just boil it down to time is all fucked. Ghosts are fucked.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you at all? I want logic and I want a linear plot.
But I think that's also the difference between Western and Eastern horror movies in this sense. Like, I'm pretty sure that whole rooftop scene between Karen and Detective Nakagawa is just like, here's all the explanations because the American audience is gonna need this.
Yeah, I do hate movies that explain things to you too much.
I feel attacked.
No, it's fine. We just like different things. Like, I love, like I said before, like, I love subtlety. I love where you kind of don't have to hand things to the audience. I like being able to interpret it my own way, or even not interpret it and just be able to, like Jackie does, accept what's happening. I don't need someone to stand there and open their notebook and be like, okay, friends, here is what is happening in this film.
That is what I prefer. I don't want any of this ambiguity, because it's like, if there's too many options, then I get distracted thinking about all the different options. And I want to know, why would you hide the motivation of a character from me? You're telling a story, so tell it to me.
Fair.
Anyway, this is it. This is why I hate your taste in movies. The podcast.
Dare you?
Thank you. Can I tell you my other big disappointed feeling about this movie?
Yes.
Why doesn't anyone call the police? You found a child half dead hanging out a window. Beep, boop, beep. Hello? A crime has happened. Nobody calls the police. There's so many opportunities where just getting the cops involved would help a lot. Nope.
Well,
I think I'm going to handle it myself.
But I mean, it wouldn't help a lot.
Well,
it's just going to bring more people into the curse, though. So
he didn't know that, though.
I know.
Yeah, the characters don't know that. They're not like, oh, I'm not going to call the cops because I want to save them from the Grudge curse.
But I mean,
I would probably be like, I'm calling everyone so the ghost can go after them first and I'll run far, far away.
The Ring style.
Yeah.
Whoa. Did you just solve this? And if we ever get into a Grudge situation, just keep bringing in other victims and like helping out. You can be kind of like the ghost feeder and help them out.
Maybe that's why we don't see the realtor getting killed. Maybe she spares him because he brought a whole slew of new victims.
That's what I'm just trying to
And he
figure
probably
out. Do they
continues to.
die? Do they die in the order like of how long they've been in the house? Because I don't.
Emma lasts a really long time.
Yeah.
Emma lasts the longest. Yeah, I think out of everyone.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar doesn't die, even though she's been there quite a while, whereas her boss dies immediately, and he was only in there for a few minutes.
That's true. So,
Sorry. Am I not supposed to think Sarah Michelle Gellar died at the end?
well, she is in the sequel.
Oh.
But
so
she does die in the sequel.
How long is the sequel supposed to have elapsed between the two?
Oh, geez. I don't remember. I'm pretty
I'm
sure
saying at least a day, so she made it pretty long time.
Yeah. I know that she's in a mental institution, I believe. Or maybe it's just a hospital. I can't remember. She's in a hospital of some kind. And then is still getting haunted. But then her sister is Amber Tamblyn, and so her sister like is so like Amber Tamblyn is in Tokyo like trying to help her, I think, and then she dies. She dies Bill Pullman style a little bit because she dies up on the roof. Kayako finds her up on the roof and then I think just throws her off the roof of the hospital. Fun times.
Spoiler alarm. Does Amber Tamblyn die?
Probably. I honestly have, like, I remember Toshio in the hallway and Sarah Michelle Gellar falling from the sky. That's the only thing I remember.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll never know because I will never watch that.
It is on Netflix. Grudge 2, currently on Netflix.
Never. Not even if you paid me. My other question, just about Detective Nakagawa, when he goes to burn some shit down.
Yep.
Do you think he would have been successful if he doused the house from the outside?
I don't know. I don't know if he would have been like, would burning the house actually work?
Well, they say like she does get it set on fire, but they say that they save the house, right? Like the firefighters put out the blaze.
Yeah.
So, because I was about to say, oh yeah, even they burnt the house down, but the ghost is still after SMG in the morgue. But no, they saved the house, so that doesn't make sense. But I don't know, like, I guess the spirit would then just haunt a plot of land.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know but she can leave the land, so.
Yeah, like, I don't know if she would be destroyed if they burned down the house. I think they would just burn down the house, and she would be like, okay, what was that about? Rude much? And then still follow you home and kill you.
What if they built, like, an apartment complex with a grocery store in the bottom, and then there's, like, 800,000 people every day?
She would be in heaven. She's, like, creepy crawling down all the stairs, like, let's do this. The landlord's like, wow, there's a really fast turnover on my building. Like, tenants keep disappearing. I don't know.
Oh, well.
Well, okay, so one thing I think is kind of weird is at the end when Karen is at the house, sees everything, and then Doug is dying and they're at the bottom of the stairs and Kayako's climbing down the stairs. So this is the first time we see her that she's covered in blood. And I think that goes back to scenes that were cut. Like, she died covered in blood. So I don't know why that's the only time we see her covered in blood.
I thought she was strangled.
She, I think, was killed. Do I have it written down?
If I recall correctly, but if Austin has it written down, she can maybe correct me. But I think she was stabbed and her neck was broken.
Yeah, he stabs her with box cutters and then breaks her neck and ankle, which is why she hobbles.
See, none of that. I got none of that.
No, that's all.
Her backstory murder was so small. You're right. It's like blink of an eye. I didn't understand it at all. I didn't even get that he thought she was having an affair. I just thought that he was like, you have a crush on someone, I will murder you.
Yeah, I think
so they could have explained it a lot more.
Well, and it's funny because even in the cast commentary, Sam Raimi's talking a lot about this, like, all the stuff that they had to cut and all the, like, the special feature or the special version that was going to be released later. And you could kind of tell that the cast was kind of like, why isn't it in the movie though? They were all like, oh, I got to see this version. It does seem like they did it a disservice by not giving enough backstory a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know they wanted that PG-13 rating though. Especially at 2004, there were so many remakes and stuff, like Jen was saying, teen horror movies coming out at that point. I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate because I feel like it would have added a bit more and you would have understood Kayako and Toshio. I don't know. It would have been...
Oh, by the way, both of you, where's my a cat's gonna die at this time
I
alert?
thought about texting you, but then I was like, oh, you don't actually see it. They cut away really fast.
You see him put a cat in a bathtub. That's pretty sad. You know what happened,
right?
Yeah, he's just cleaning. He's giving the cat a bath, and it's fine now.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, you guys also said the kid merges with a ghost cat, so I think you're giving me mixed signals here.
Oops. I did think of that. I should have texted you.
To defend myself, first of all, this is Austin's movie, so she's responsible for sending those animal updates. Second of all, I kind of thought the cat was just dead from the whole time. I forgot there was a scene where you see the flashback. So, if it had always been a ghost cat, would you still need a warning for that?
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as always a ghost cat. You had to be a cat before you were a ghost cat.
But I mean, in the course of the movie, if you had only ever seen it as a ghost cat.
I wouldn't care. No, totally.
Okay.
Ghost cats are cool.
Yeah.
So apparently there's a Japanese legend where doomed spirits of lost children become strays as a result, and so they produce a cat's meow. So that's also potentially explains the Toshio stuff.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah.
Did not enjoy it.
Another thing that was cut at the end of the movie was when Bill Pullman goes into the room, they hear like the banging. And I could have sworn I've seen this scene, so I don't know where this came from, but there's the banging, Bill Pullman goes into the room and then leaves in terror, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar goes in. And I don't think you see anything, right?
No, I saw.
I was very curious. Oh, no, I didn't see it.
Oh, you saw. So maybe you watched the director's cut.
Oh, I don't know, but I saw Toshio was playing with the legs of his dad's hanging corpse.
Yeah.
Ew.
He's hanging by Kayako's hair.
Yeah, and like the kid is like playing with his legs, which are banging against the wall.
So that's not in the DVD or the theatrical cut. So you must have seen Yeah, so I've seen that at some
I watched
point.
a fancy version.
Yeah, because I know that I've seen that scene before, so I was very confused.
You can have that fancy version. I think I'm happy with what I saw.
God, if I had got the version without even that, I would have been like, there's no scares in this movie. There's no horror elements. What is happening? Like one of 3 things that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
I was scared. You can't say things like that. Me scared.
Sorry. This isn't my favorite. I do find Ju-on creepy, so I think maybe like I can see why you would be scared of this, but I just, on principle, I can't get on board with an American remake.
There it is. That's okay. That I understand that position, because it is always going to be worse. It's just always going to be worse. I do have one other thing I wanted to ask. How does Doug actually die?
She kills him.
But like how? She just kind of like moves past him and he's like, I am dead now.
I think she kills him the same way she killed Emma. Like she just kind of hovered over her for a while and just maybe scared them to death. I don't know.
Well, actually, that's how I thought Emma died. Like I thought Emma was scared to death.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about it, I don't know why I thought that, but that's what I thought. So, but I'm like, Doug is like he's more with it.
Well, she obviously hurt him in some capacity because he's like injured and looks like he's pretty close to death when Karen gets there anyway. And then she like crawls down the stairs and like crawls on top of him, and her hair falls in his face and stuff. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's pretty much how Emma died. So I assume it's.
So it's just her hair. Her hair is poison.
Interesting.
Ghost poison.
And then she like turns into him, or he turns into her at the end too, which is even creepier.
It's okay though, because Doug is such a dead weight. It's like
he
whatever.
He really is.
Get out of here.
Why. He was not required for this movie.
I looked down at my notebook at one point and I just see the one thing I wrote down, which is what kind of name is Doug? And it just made me laugh. Fucking Doug. Why is he in this movie?
Doug and Karen.
Oh my
Doug
god.
And Karen.
They're such like a 47-year-old married couple in the suburbs.
Yeah, and then Matthew and Susan and Jennifer. I mean, what a kind of bunch of idiots.
What kind of name is Jennifer?
I wouldn't know because my name is Jenn.
Short for nothing at all.
Exactly. No second half to my name whatsoever.
The one other thing I took issue with, and this goes down to my logic problem, which is they don't just let random psych patients be in a morgue alone with a bunch of dead bodies. They're not just like, yeah, you had a psychotic break. Why don't you hang out here for a bit unsupervised?
What, don't they?
I'm here to tell you, I don't think so.
All right, well, based on my experience of watching movies, people are in the morgue all the time when they have no reason to be, so.
Well, in my real life experience of being in many morgues, you have to have a security guard open the door for you.
Interesting.
Usually they stay there while you're in there.
Would it count if Kayako is the security guard?
Whoa, that's next level. If she's wearing like a blue uniform and she takes off her hat and all the hair falls out and then she's like, you're secured, then I'd be in.
That's
I was trying to think of a
amazing.
security fund and I got nothing. I'm like,
You're secured.
your doom is secured now. Pat myself on the back for that one.
That's pretty much the end of the movie. We made
Yeah.
it somehow.
The movie ending sucked. That's another thing. I'm like, that's the end? Shitty. Disappointing. Give me resolution, guys. Give me an ending.
Okay,
Don't build a franchise on my disappointment.
But we got some resolution at the end of like the Babadook, and you also didn't care for that. So I don't know how to please you.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, we're getting feisty now.
No
What do
one
you
knows.
want from us, Jackie?
I feel like it's been very clear. I want an army movie about men fighting aliens, and I want things to explode. I don't know how many times I have to say it. That's what I want. Give me that.
Okay, I'm gonna brainstorm and find a horror movie about an army.
I mean, there's got to be one. If not, you can make it. I believe in you.
I will. Do you think I won't, Jackie? I'm gonna have the Marines getting ripped apart by ghosts.
Wait, no, they have to win. They're the good guys.
Oh, no. The ghosts are gonna eat them.
What if the ghosts are ex-Marines and they are in uniform?
Are they only killing bad guys? I mean, I'm willing to work with you, but you got to give me more.
You guys ever heard of a movie called Dead Snow?
No.
It's about zombie Nazis. Would that be something you would be interested in?
Never Nazis. Have I ever said anything about Nazis? No.
People
Nazis
kill them. The heroes of the film get to kill Nazis. You're not rooting for the Nazis.
I thought I was, because I was talking about how I wanted army guys and like uniforms, but not Nazis. I feel like I need to make that very clear.
Draw a line in the sand.
Yeah,
blanket statement. That is for real.
I was trying to think of anything with like Marine or Army ghosts, and all I could come up with was zombie Nazis. So
Okay, well,
all right,
you
we'll
got some
work
time.
on it.
You may brainstorm. Yes.
okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
What do we do now? It's been so long since we've.
I know. I'm like, do we do our high points, low points?
I think so.
Okay, high points, low points. Ugh. I'll start, but I really don't have anything. My high point was myself imagining me traveling to Japan.
Okay.
That was it. I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I'd like to walk down that street. I'd like to wear a big turtleneck. Like, cool, sure, why not? After seeing this movie, I wouldn't go into any houses at all. I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm good on the street. And then my low point, I really actually spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And then I wrote low point, this movie. So I feel like that just that speaks for itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll say my high point is remembering the scenes that I liked from the Japanese version.
Doesn't count.
No, but like the sequence with Susan, like we mentioned, I think that's a really well done sequence that they just reshot exactly for this movie, so it is still good technically. Yeah, I like seeing Kayako being all creepy and evil. I enjoy that. I think she's a cool character. I forgot to wear it, but I have a Team Kayako hat from when I saw Sadako versus Kayako at TIFF. They handed out Team Sadako, which is from The Ring, and it had like a little picture of the Ring videotape on it, and Team Kayako, which has got the little like stitched version of like her ghost self.
Okay.
The problem with that hat is that that movie premiere was September 2016, and it is a red baseball cap with white stitching, and then November 2016 made it that I could never wear that ever.
Oh no. So are you actually Team Kayako versus what's her name? Sadako? I only know her as Samara.
Right, sorry. You know, I don't know, because I do really like Ju-on, and I like Ringu as well, but I don't know. I mean,
what's Ringu?
It's the ring in Japan.
What's the clay penguin?
Pingu.
Okay, this makes more sense now. No, I haven't seen The Ring or the Ringu or any of these, and I never will. Goodbye.
All right.
Don't get ideas, Jen. Do not get ideas.
Just making some notes here. I do think we were somehow in the middle of my high points and low points where I just veered off into my story about a hat. So my low point is probably just the extreme xenophobia of this movie. Every scene where someone's like, they do rituals in Japan, or I'm at a grocery store and I have to rip open packages, and like all of that stuff. It was just so jarring and I hated it.
That's really funny. I don't know. I just interpreted that as she's lost in Japan.
Have you ever been in a country where you don't speak the language and you have ripped open packaging in a store?
No. Oh, I see your point.
Have you ever been in a country where you're not from and there's a different language and culture, and you have seen people going about their day and stopped and pointed out their religious rituals?
Yeah, I have to give you that one. That's a fair point.
They should have taken some pictures and been like, ooh,
Yeah.
real Japanese
What
people.
did she say? She's like, they must have lost someone they loved or something.
Yes, she's like, this is a Buddhist ritual. They must have lost someone they cared about. And I was like, again, that has nothing to do with anything in the movie. But legit, that's the equivalent of someone putting flowers on a grave and being like, this is a Christian ritual. They must have lost a loved one.
But I mean, you're in a graveyard beside a grave. Obviously, you lost someone you love. Like, what else are you doing there? Look, yard work? Like, you're there because you lost someone. This doesn't need to be said.
Yeah, unless they're like the employees.
Right? He's wearing like a jumpsuit and he's got a broom and just like, oh, he lost someone he loves. It's a Buddhist ritual.
What a beautiful, touching ritual. And he's just like polishing gravestones.
He's got a radio. He's like,
2004 would be a Discman.
Yes.
Right? He's spinning. He's got like that shock protection.
Yeah, he moves too like fast and the sound skips. That was always the worst.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, my high points and low points. I think my high point, we didn't talk about this scene, but the scene where Detective Nakagawa is rewatching the security footage from Susan when Kayako is walking down the hallway. I just really like his reaction. I think Detective Nakagawa is my high point.
But he doesn't have a reaction at all. He's just like, huh.
No,
weird.
What I love about it specifically is that when her head, or like when her head pops up in front of the camera, he does this really subtle like look behind him thing, and it just like struck me as a very like real reaction to something where he was like what's around me. I don't know. I liked that moment. It's a very that's not a very good high point. I just like it.
No,
Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's also my high point.
No, I mean, if your high point is that scene, I'm all for picking random scenes as a high point. I do it all the time.
I just really like the reaction of like he saw something scary on the TV and just instinctively like looked around to make sure nothing was behind him, because I feel like we all do that. It just felt very real.
Austin, there's something behind you right now on the Zoom.
Off, Jen. I'm still trying to think of my low point. Alex is...
Because there's so many.
No, is your low point this podcast?
Yeah, right. No, like I said, I had no illusions that either of you would like this movie. I had a fun time rewatching it just because it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I used to really like it, so it was just like fun to rewatch it. I think my low point is Alex's scream when he dies. You have to go back and rewatch that scene. It is so funny. Because, especially knowing that that was like one of the scariest scenes for me, that it took me so long to rewatch it, and then it's like capped off by the most absurd scream. It's so funny. I can't express to you how amazing his scream is. So you just need to go back, rewatch that, watch his facial expressions. It's magical. But it totally ruins the moment, so that's my low point.
I would prefer it if you would try and recreate it for us right now.
I'm not gonna do that because
I
feel like Jen's gonna like try to take a picture somehow, and that's
Don't worry about it. I'm not recording video on my phone at all.
So, quotes.
I would love to, but the only quote I have is this: croak.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of quotes in this movie.
I didn't have any.
Give you that. Although I did make a note halfway through the movie that was like, why do I know all the lines? I was basically speaking the movie along with it. It's like, why is this movie so familiar to me still? But it was.
It really made an impression. So I don't have any quotes. All that to say, no quotes. Somebody else go.
Well, do you have any trivia that you haven't already covered?
I'll go through it. What do I have? So the budget was $10 million estimated. Worldwide gross was $187 million. It made $39 million on its opening weekend, and it became the first horror film to top the Halloween box office since House on Haunted Hill in 1999.
Oh, awful.
It held the horror remake record until Friday the 13th in 2009. So it was actually surprisingly financially successful. I know Jen is shaking her head in shame, but it is what it is.
No, just every movie you just mentioned is not good, so that was more just in general for the state of American blockbuster Hollywood horror movies in the early 2000s.
It wasn't
Not
a great time.
Scene.
It's the only film in the franchise to have a VHS release, so that's cool. And a little dating it a little bit, but it was also on Roger Ebert's most hated list. So Jen and Roger Ebert, BFFs. Okay, so Yoko killing Alex, that is part of the thing that's lifted from Ju-on the Curse, which is from 2000. Because apparently this like got a lot of criticism by like, oh, that never happened, but it did happen. It happened, and it wasn't like a theatrically released movie. It predated the original Ju-on.
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier when I was talking about the Ju-on movies, because there's Ju-on the Curse and Ju-on the Curse 2, I think, which were straight to VHS. And then the director kind of remade them as Ju-on the Grudge and Ju-on the Grudge 2, I guess, which were theatrical releases in Japan. So it's kind of like each one is slightly differently telling the same story.
Right. So basically, every death was taken from somewhere in the original Japanese franchise. So nothing was really original in this. So that's a thing. And yeah, the only character without a counterpart is Doug, as we've discussed. So yeah, about 40 minutes were removed from the final cut. About 7 minutes are back in the unrated cut. So I wonder if that's maybe what you saw, Jen, was the unrated cut.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you guys want to take a guess at the body count? It's pretty easy to figure out.
Okay. 12?
Yeah, Jack.
I got to 11.
So it's 9 plus the Takeo family. So,
yeah, that's what I was saying.
So there's 12. And I guess you also have to, well, you don't see it on screen, but there's also the real estate agent and the other detective.
Well, then we also have to count the 3 other cops who died earlier.
Yeah.
Oh.
Everyone's dead. It's intense. I feel like we've talked about this before, where it's like kind of rare when just everyone dies.
I love movies like this. I love when everyone dies.
So we all heard that. Jen loves this movie. It's official.
Jen loves this movie. Great.
No, but I love when everyone dies. I love a nihilistic ending.
I did try to do a little bit of research on the Japanese legend. It's of the, oh god, I'm going to butcher pronunciations. I apologize.
This is why I never brought any of this up, because I've also read of this stuff, but I'm like, I can't pronounce the Japanese word, so I will let Austin do it.
My very basic understanding, it's based on the legend of the Onryo, which is a vengeful spirit capable of harming the living or causing natural disasters to exact vengeance. So they want to right the wrongs from when they were alive. And I think that that's also where I read that they can sometimes take the bodies of their victims to exact more revenge. So that also lines up with Yoko and I guess Matthew too, because we see him very briefly there in the peephole. The director, Takashi Shimizu, he directed Ju-on. He saw making this movie as an opportunity to fix some issues or make improvements to the original. So Jen looks disapprovingly.
He saw the opportunity to make some Hollywood money, and I respect that, you know?
You know what, though? The filming process of this sounds like it was pretty cool, because he does not speak English. So this whole movie was made with an interpreter. It sounds like the cast was really invested in it in a different way, because it was a completely different way of filmmaking. So I don't know, they just all seemed very respectful and very gracious and very thankful for the opportunity to have filmed the movie the way that they did, because it was definitely bridging two very different cinema worlds. And so the way I just think there's kind of something to be said for the way this movie was made. Whether or not it's the best movie ever, obviously it's not, but I think there's something to it. I think it's not as terrible as Jen thinks it is. Don't
Jackie hates it. Jackie hates it too.
Yeah,
Stop
Jackie
picking on me.
Every horror movie.
I actually can appreciate a little bit what Austin's saying, though. Like, I don't agree that they whitewashed it at all. But at the time, that's the only way it was going to get made. So at least they tried to be a little bit respectful of Japanese culture and show some parts of some stuff, I guess. It's just, yeah. I'm sure it was different than everything else that came out in 2004, and it was probably the most racially aware, even though it was not racially aware.
And you are right that, like, this was in the boom of, like, American remakes of Asian horror movies, and I think this is the only one that bothered to even set it there. I think the rest of them were just like, this is happening in America now, so yeah. I guess it gets props for that, even if I don't think they handled it in a super great way, but it was also 2004.
Speaking of 2004, Jen, what else came out that year?
2004, not a good year. Holy, there were some bad movies this year. So
all Austin's favorites.
Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Oh wait, was that 2004?
No, it was Scooby-Doo 2. I did see it.
Yes, okay.
I was going to say, Austin, there was also a musical adaptation that year. Do you know which one?
No, I don't think I do.
Phantom of the Opera. You're
safe. I was gonna say that.
Oh, I hate it.
Other movies that came out that year were Napoleon Dynamite. Do you remember that cultural phenomenon?
I hated
And
it always.
The Notebook.
Loved it.
Some better horror movies that came out that year were Shaun of the Dead and the Dawn of the Dead remake. So yay for that. And then some equally bad horror movies from that year were The Village, Secret Window, and The Butterfly Effect.
Oh, I've definitely seen all of those.
So have I.
No, none of them.
Yeah.
I will defend The Village to a certain point.
I think The Village tried to do something.
It's the best of the three that you just mentioned.
You know, you're just asking me, like, which 3 dead rats I like the most.
Obviously, the less smelly one.
Yeah. Ratings?
Okay.
This is not going to come as a shock to anyone. My ratings. Here we go. Enjoyment, 1 out of 10. Quality, 3 out of 10. Did not enjoy this movie. Did not understand it. The timing made no sense to me. Then they were flying through time and communicating with Billy Poles, and they underused him. Fact.
Criminally underused.
Criminally. And I didn't like it. I didn't like any of it. And I thought it was made kind of crappily. I didn't really enjoy. I know it's atmospheric to have everything be really dim and shadows and stuff, but it got old really fast. The movie just didn't keep me hooked at all. It was, like I said earlier, it just seemed like everyone was slowly walking and slowly exploring things. I was just like, can we, like, move it along, please? And again, I was going to these movies pretty blind because I don't know anything about them, so I didn't know what to expect, and it's pretty boring. There was definitely scary moments, and because any horror movie will make me not be able to sleep, regardless of what an actual scare factor is. It scared me, but I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a scare that I was like, ooh, I'm titillated. It was just like, Frig, you got me. And then I felt stupid for having got. So, those are my ratings. Not a surprise.
All right, Jen, break my heart.
I mean, I think it's going to be fairly similar. I find it boring. I find it kind of a slog to get through. I don't find myself entertained by it. Like, I think I haven't watched the Ring remake in a long time, but I feel like that one's at least slightly more engaging, whereas this one is kind of dull. And by a long time, I mean since it came out. So that could just be a total lie. I don't remember it as well at all. But I just found this really hard to get through and to fully pay attention because it was just kind of dull. And then as for quality, I guess I'll give it a 4.
Okay.
Austin, your ratings.
My rating. This is a tough one. I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. I think I enjoyed it more for just like, it's like reconnecting with an old friend, you know? I'm going to give it a 6 for enjoyment because I definitely did get, Jen, what you're talking about, like kind of being dull. So I'm going to say a 6 for enjoyment. It wasn't as good. However, with the cast commentary, 12 out of 10. Fantastic. Highly recommend. And then for quality, I'm going to give it more credit than either of you did. I'm going to give it, I think, a 6. I think it's cool that they didn't really use any CGI. I don't know. I like the blending of filmmaking styles. I'm going to give it a 6 on that.
Thumbs up.
Do we need to check in with the friendometer? Has this been a rough one for some people?
Probably.
Sounds like things got a little dicey there.
Things got testy, yeah. My friendometer with Jen. You know, I think it's in the orange because you are too cavalier about the fact that your apartment is haunted, and I've been there. You've needlessly risked me. I don't care about you risking you, but you do not risk me.
I mean, if the ghosts were gonna kill us, I would be dead already, and I'm not.
Not
so
true.
I'm probably fine.
Sarah Michelle Gellar lasted multiple days. There's no telling. Also, if this movie has taught us anything, is that time does not exist, and it's a flat circle, so who knows what's going to happen.
Oh, I'm actually already dead from years gone past, and our timelines have just intersected.
What?
She's
Great.
pulling a Billy Poles.
Okay, so my friendometer with Jackie is high because A, you hated this movie, which makes me happy, and B, you brought the phrase Billy Poles into my life.
You know what? Now we're in the green again, right there. Give me a little bit of praise, and I'm like, we're friends forever. Austin, how do you feel about us?
Yeah, do you hate us a little?
I mean, this is not unexpected. This is not unexpected. I think we're okay. I think we're in the greens. It's like maybe a little towards the yellow, but like still in green, you know? Yeah. I had no illusions going into this. I was like, Jackie's gonna hate this because it's a horror movie, and Jen's gonna hate this because it's not a great horror movie.
I mean,
you just
know
summarized
us.
this so perfectly.
Yeah, I really enjoy it for what it is. What's coming up next week as we continue our spooky October?
It's back to me, right? We're back to the normal order?
Oh no, I'm concerned. This is upsetting news.
Okay,
No.
so spooky Halloween pick. We're going to watch a found footage film that I really enjoy. I think it's a hidden gem and it's got some spooky ghosts and I really like it. And it is called Grave Encounters. No one looks happy.
You guys, this is 2 horror movies 2 weeks in a row. Who signed up for this? Who made this podcast? I don't feel like I was consulted.
I've done nothing wrong because I always provide horror movies. It's Austin you should be mad at for throwing you a random horror movie in her midst.
Anyway.
Great.
All right, so that I think wraps us up for The Grudge. I had a great time. Please rate, review, and subscribe. The more people we have listening, the better. We're having a lot of fun doing this. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can find us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. And please say hello. We'd love to hear from you. Join us next week when we talk about Grave Encounters, continue our spooky October, and make Jackie hate us even more. Thanks for listening. Bye.